What I'm going to show you today is the Realizing Potential framework, which is a platform for optimization and transformation. And there are many reasons to consider using a platform. First off, to make sense of things and a way of capturing really useful information. Most importantly, as a way to answer questions such as how do we make sense of the organization? What are we missing? What do we need to do? And how are we going to do it? Platforms are really useful tools for doing that. Turnaround and transformation, in my view, are two very different things. Turnaround usually has a specific goal in mind, typically to save the company or to improve performance. At the time, it can involve high levels of emotion, stress, and or conflict. Whereas transformation is more of a journey. We don't really know what we're going to encounter on the way through. And in its own way, it can have elements of complication, complexity, and even sometimes chaos. And I really like the quote by Dave Snowden: "In the face of greater complexity, leaders need tools and approaches to guide their firms through unfamiliar waters." And as we go through transformation, that's exactly what we find. Using a platform when we're going through either of these situations can be really useful because they open up discussion and understanding. They provide an opportunity for us to make sense of what's really happening. And by their nature, because they are connected central repositories, then they become an inclusive tool. And the more people that use it within an organization, the greater the value. But when we start any transformational turnaround, we need to understand the current state at a high level so we can form a baseline. So we tend to make sense of the organization through using what we call our alignment model. It's got 7 elements: strategy, structures, people, process, information, technology, and governance. And when you make a change to any one of those, it will impact the others. So we need to understand what the baseline is. We need to make sure that we've got the capabilities to make a successful move from where we are to where we need to be. And we need to understand the current interactions between each of these 7 elements. So what works well and what doesn't. This type of model helps us answer questions such as the why, what, where, when, how, and who. And as we start asking those questions, we can start to develop views on activity and timing, capability, enterprise architecture, hierarchy and teams, interactions and relationships, all of the things that you can see on the slide. And today, more and more businesses are using some sort of platform, whether they're cloud-based technology platforms or modeling platforms like the one I'm showing you today, compute platforms, social platforms, or analytics platforms. And when we use the platforms, we can start to develop a holistic view. Now, this particular model is the Realizing Potential, what we call the enterprise model. It's bounded by 4 things: the technology architecture on the bottom, infrastructure, applications, and information, bounded by strategy, what are the objectives and the timing of those objectives, the governance framework, so what are the boundaries that we're operating within. You'll see on the various layers, we've got all of the technical infrastructure, the applications across the organization that infrastructure supports, and the operational processes that it supports. Then it feeds up into decision making. So what data and information are we using to make decisions? How do we capture and share knowledge? And then how do we ultimately drive performance? So a simple model like this gives us that holistic, abstract view. But we need to come out of that abstract view, and this is a board of innovation model. And a model like this lets us understand in very simplistic ways how the business competes, how it deals with its customers and suppliers, most importantly, how it makes money. When we're working through any sort of optimization or turnaround or transformation, we have to work with 2 different things: all of the managerial and transactional issues and the culture. We start by modeling the hierarchy or team structures within an organization because it provides insight into the type of structure. Is it command and control? Is it collaborative? Is it an agile environment? How does knowledge get shared? And how do federated teams work? Once we have this sort of model in the platform, it gives us insight into lots of things. Not only the reporting structures or hierarchical structure, it can start to show us where decisions are made, where we're highly responsive and where we're not, where we're highly effective and where we're not, and where collaboration happens and where it doesn't. In this particular model, you'll see that the role of the project manager is highlighted because this is a data-driven model. We can drill down into that role and we can see all of the activities that that project manager is responsible and accountable for. We can also then start to look at some off-platform information that this model surfaces, such as who are sponsors, who are leaders, who are supporters. And if we're trying to move from one state to another, we need to make sure that we have the capability to do that. So this is a simple capability model. And transformation and turnaround is difficult work at times with lots of different minefields along the way. So we need to ensure that we have the capabilities to do what we need to do. And using a simple model like this can make confirming and designing capability so much easier. When you use the platform, you can then link specific processes to these capabilities so you understand not just the what, but the how, the who, the where, and the when. And we typically capture against each capability the goal of that capability, such as the organisation will be capable of identifying new markets and show demonstrable results within 3 months. But that's all well and good at a high level. We actually need to get down to the grassroots and find out how those capabilities are enacted. And we do that obviously through processes. And process models are a great tool for understanding how the business works and what opportunities for transformation or turnaround exist. They really are a very rich source of information. But what most people don't realise is that business processes play an important role in defining and managing the interactions of people and things. And we can't change either organisation or people behaviour if we don't understand what those interactions are. We also need to understand the emotions and behaviours that come into play and what processes or activities within a process cause anxiety or frustration and stress. We need to also understand what activities create value and what create risk. When we use a platform to visualize the business, it gives us a whole different set of insights. When we typically do a project, we will gather something in the vicinity of 220 data intelligence points, things like activity and linkages, who's responsible, what's high value, what's low value, system interactions, emotions, behaviours, pace, all of those sort of things, which are critical to have insight into when we're doing that sort of project. And in this particular model, in this particular process model, you'll see it's reasonably well populated. So it will show us where decisions are made. It will show us what systems are used. It will show us where there's risk and where we create value. And this can be a current state, but we also have the opportunity then to say, well, if we changed activity 2, then we need to create a future state. We can do that in the platform against the same model. So we can very quickly see the impact of any change. And if we've got more than one option for our future state, then we can also start to develop various scenarios to see which scenario actually gives us the better return on effort and return on investment and also the highest level of impact. They're a great way to communicate and operationalize opportunity. And as you go through and work out what the current and future state changes are, you will build out a number of initiatives or projects. This is where the platform really does come into its own, because it will help you manage the journey and the expectations along the way for that journey. So this is a realizing potential transformation map. Down the bottom, you'll see a number of activities, the timing for those activities, and then a number of projects along the way. We can see the activities and initiatives that are being worked on and delivered, and we can see, if we have a look at this particular initiative here, we can start to get a high-level view of the cost savings, any fixed costs, annual costs, who's involved. So from a management perspective, this provides a lot of information. I really love this type of model. And when we're going through transformation, it usually involves, especially over the last 18 months, technology components. And we can start to model those out too. So we can expose challenges, constraints, and complexity. After all, the ICT infrastructure, whether it's hybrid, cloud, or on-premise, it's the great enabler. So we need to understand what that can deliver, hence the references to these models from the enterprise model. But once we've got all of those elements together and we've got all of the data in the platform, sometimes it can make the world feel really complex. And in most cases, it probably is. So to get best value out of the platform and not just the models, we start to then use 3D models of all of the processes within an organization. And in this case, what I call our matrix model, the spatial one, is a 3D model of the end-to-end processes of a civil construction organization. And from that, we can start to see what clusters are in place, what links, what outliers exist. Each of those coloured dots represent processes or activities or systems or whatever data element that we're looking for. And it helps us take a somewhat complex view and helps us simplify it. So as you can see, when you use a platform, you not only get one platform, you get many capabilities. We use the platform to leverage, we reuse, and it extends the organisational capability. We can use it to discover and capture, define and communicate, design and develop, and deliver and execute. Like any tool, when it's used well, it can make the job easier, faster, and certainly more cost-effective. They're a really great way of capturing and sharing knowledge, enabling collaboration, and engaging all stakeholders. You'll see on this particular slide that there's references to integrated third parties. That means that the platform can interoperate with other platforms, which means we have greater data access. So for things like RPA, we can take log files and build in the process mining and the process automation. We can start looking at what best practices exist. So it's a way of bringing data and information together. So what I've shown you today are some of the models within the framework. We tend to split them into 3 types: conceptual models to teach and to explore, data-driven to inform, and exploratory models to discover. And when we use the platform in this way, it helps create a better seeing, listening, and adaptive organisation. Visualisation helps too, especially when that visualisation can come from disparate sources of information, the platform itself, and from other applications. And these are just some of the models that we use in our transformation projects. So a transformation platform will enable you to take control of your business today and tomorrow. It'll give you levels of control and it will enable you to navigate. To wrap up, why are they useful? They allow that evolutionary journey. They support multiple frameworks, they allow feedback from stakeholders, and they help us make sense of the world. And when we have a world that looks like this, in these very interesting statistics, then we need the tools to give us a more effective approach and outcome. Now, these statistics are from two reputable sources, McKinsey and Gartner. And we've all heard of the 70% failure rate, and I often wonder if that's not just a number that's put out to support marketing efforts, but there's no doubt that a lot of initiatives don't hit the mark. But as per this Gartner statistic, if 16% of executives say that their optimization and transformation projects are succeeding, then that leaves a hell of a lot of opportunity for us as transformation and turnaround professionals to add value. So just imagine the value that you can create using a platform for your next transformation or turnaround. So on that note, I'm going to leave you to write down your own questions about how you can better optimize, transform, or turn around your organization using the platform technologies that exist today. I hope you've enjoyed the session. For further information, you can go to realizingpotential.com.au or you can contact me on LinkedIn.